Welcome back to Parent Center. This month's topic is extended school year. I'm Chris Talley. I'm the special education supervisor for grades 4 through 6, and joined with me, we have Amy Hiller. Amy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Amy Hiller. I'm the special education supervisor for K-3.
And Amy and I are the project leads for Springford's in-house ESY program. So we are tag team in this presentation today, and we'll answer any questions that anybody has afterwards. According to PDE, which is the Pennsylvania Department of Education, extended school year, which we often refer to as ESY services, are special education and related services provided to students with disabilities beyond the regular 180-day school year. The IDEA requires school districts to provide services if a student needs them to receive a free and appropriate public education. ESY services are provided during breaks in the educational schedule to prevent this loss.
All right, so all students with disabilities who qualify for special education must be considered for ESY eligibility at each annual IEP meeting. The type, amount, duration, or location of those services are not predetermined or limited based on disability.
Some of the basic ESY steps, and your case manager will go over all of this with you at your IEP meeting. So this isn't something that you need to take notes on. This will be presented to you at an IEP meeting, or if it's a revision, they'll go over this with you at a revision phone call. The first thing you're going to do is the team's going to gather information regarding the student progress, especially after breaks in the school schedule. Step 2 is you're going to make the determination regarding eligibility at an IET meeting or a revision meeting. Step 3 is you document the ESY determination on the IEP. And step 4 is after the determination is recommended, the case manager is going to issue a NOREP based on those recommendations.
Right, so the first step, as Chris said, is the case manager will be gathering information. So the type of information that we're looking for, the most important piece is that progress monitoring data by both the educators and therapists. And we're really looking before and after interruptions in education, such as the winter break, like Chris mentioned. Some other pieces of information, medical or other agency reports, which might become extreme during breaks in educational services. Observations and opinions by educators and parents are also taken into consideration. And then we're looking at, in addition to the progress monitoring data, we're looking at results of different assessments, such as curriculum-based assessments, life skills assessments, or other equivalent measures.
Step 2 is the ESY determination. Now, in every IEP, the verbiage always refers back to the 7 factors. And a lot of times teachers and parents are always wondering what those 7 factors are. So we lay them out for you here. One of the factors is regression that Amy talked about, recoupment, regression and recoupment. So there could be an instance where a student may regress but is able to recoup those skills. Other times the recoupment is not made, and that's when you have to look into the ESY determination. Another determining factor is mastery or self-sufficiency and independence, successive interruptions, or the severity of the disability.
All right, so regression and recoupment. Regression refers to how much knowledge or how many skills a student loses due to a break in educational program. So, and then the next piece is recoupment, how long it takes for that student to get back what they lost before the break. So as an example, before winter break, John knew his times tables up to 5. After break, he only could recite his 2s and 3s. And it took him 20 school days to relearn again the 4s and 5s times tables. So he regressed in the skill of multiplication up to 5. And then it took him a long time to relearn and recoup those skills.
The next is mastery. And mastery is defined when a student is learning a crucial skill or series of steps necessary for the mastery of a skill, and there's a break in the educational program. The student would have to relearn all the necessary steps for mastery from the beginning. So for example, Philip is learning how to dress himself. He has learned all the steps except for the final step of fastening his shirt. It's taken him all year in innumerable repetitions to learn the process up to this point. His IEP meeting is this week. It's unlikely that Phil's going to learn the last step and have enough time to perform the adequate amount of repetitions to master their skill before the end of the school year. So at that point, Philip wasn't able to master the skill and hasn't been able after several repetitions to master it. So then at that point, you would look into determining whether or not ESY would be appropriate.
Right, the next factor of eligibility would be self-sufficiency and independence. So this is the extent to which a skill or behavior is crucial for the student to meet IEP goals, specifically in the independence from caregivers. So for example, in September, Serena was not able to make any requests. She had goals that were implemented to address requests for bathroom breaks, calming breaks, and snacks in school. In December, Serena made unprompted requests 30% of the time and prompted ones 70% of the time. Following the break, she did not return to these levels until late February. So in this situation, Serena would be eligible for ESY because she did not recoup the skill and because she was working on that self-sufficiency and independence skill.
Next is successive interruptions, and that is the extent to which the interruptions in educational programming and the cumulative loss of skills and knowledge suffered during those interruptions in educational programming result in the student becoming so frustrated, lost, or confused that the student withdraws from the learning process. So for example, Jim is a student with multiple disabilities. His teachers and therapists have been working with Jim on toileting skills, from scheduled visits to the bathroom to self-initiated visits. During the spring break, Jim was self-initiating the need to go to the bathroom 50% of the time. After the break, he regressed to 20% of the time. Amy talked about it a little bit earlier. Christmas break or the holiday break is always a good example of the disruptive time period, or spring break, or if there was an elongated absence or a family vacation or something where they're coming back and they're not recouping that skill where they used to be.
Right, the next factor for eligibility is the severity of a student's disability. So if a student has a disability that is severe, such as autism, serious emotional disturbance, a severe intellectual disability, or an impairment with mental involvement, or severe multiple disabilities, that the student would be eligible for ESY. For example, Jane has been identified as a student with autism and participates in an autistic support classroom. One of her goals is to learn to transition among daily routines. Progress monitoring data was collected before and after the holiday break. Jane lost 25% of her acquired skills.
All right, step 3 is to document the ESY portion of the IEP. Section 6 is the extended school year, or ESY section. At that point, you're going to determine, the team or the case manager will determine whether or not the student is eligible for ESY. And if they are, the annual goals will be starred in the IEP as well. So not every student will qualify for ESY for all of their goals if they have multiple goals. So only the goals that are going to be addressed will be starred in the IEP. ESY services will be provided. Sometimes students will qualify for ESY, which they will also qualify for services such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, those services as well. And then the location and frequency of ESY services will be documented as well, as long as the dates of ESY.
And then the last step would be to issue a NOREP or prior written notice, only if the district is proposing to add ESY services to the IEP that previously did not have ESY. If the LEA is proposing to delete ESY from an IEP, so if a student had ESY in the past, but no longer was eligible this year, we would issue a NOREP. If a parent requested ESY, but the district is saying the child is not eligible and refusing to initiate the provision of ESY, a NOREP would be issued. Or if we're proposing or refusing to change the provision of the program or type of ESY program the student is receiving.
Where is ESY? Great question, Amy. Thank you for asking that one. The IEP team determines where ESY will be provided. It could be provided at many different places, like in school or at a job site. And it's always provided in the least restrictive environment, often referred to as LRE, that is appropriate for the student. So at Springford, some of our students do participate in a work study portion of their ESY day. And we're fortunate enough to have some of our local businesses support our ESY students in our program. And some examples include Main Street Cafe, the YMCA, and Flag Zone have been great partners with us over the last couple of years.
Does ESY cost money? Good question. No, ESY services are provided in order so that the student receives a free and appropriate public education. ESY services, including special education and any of those related services, such as OT, PT, and transportation, are provided at no cost to the parent.
What is not considered ESY? I think that oftentimes is a question for parents, especially at the younger grades, exactly what it is, because it is new to students coming in kindergarten and first grade, but it is not a daycare or respite service. It's not a summer recreation program or a camp setting. Other programs or services which, while they may provide educational benefit, are not required to ensure the provision of fee.
Here are just the details of our program this summer. It is June, our Springford ESY program is June 27th to July 28th, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Transportation is provided. The students have lunch throughout their day and recess as well. And like Chris had said before, the purpose of ESY is really for our students to maintain the progress that they made throughout their school year. The purpose is not to build on anything, that's really to maintain the skills so that nothing is lost.
And then sources, you can see here, this long web address is where Amy and I didn't create all of this on our own. We have guidelines that we have to follow, which we got all from the PATAN, sometimes often referred to as patent website as well. So if you're looking for like a more in-depth or deeper look into the ESY program or what the state requires, it's a great resource that we refer to every year when we're planning ESY for Springford. That pretty much concludes our presentation on ESY. Look for your case managers to be reaching out for you between now and the month of February, especially if your son or daughter does qualify for ESY services. They will be in contact and go over more details at that point. Amy, do you have any more closing remarks for us?
No, thank you.
Yep, thank you, and we'll see you next time on Parent Center.